So how do leaders even begin to navigate our crazy, chaotic world? It's pretty clear the old rules just don't apply anymore. That's why we're digging into this really powerful new framework from the futurist Dr. San Dong-Wan. His paper made such a splash, it was even featured at the Lincoln Center's big seminar on the future of humanity. He calls it a new compass for leaders, and in this explainer, we're going to learn exactly how to use it.
Ad astra per aspera. It's Latin for through hardship to the stars. And honestly, could there be a more perfect theme for leadership right now? It really feels like we're all trying to steer a ship through a hurricane, right? We're aiming for the stars, but the storm is raging. And here's the kicker. The old ways of leading, they're just not going to cut it anymore, not even close.
And let's be real about what this storm actually looks like. I mean, just think about it. You've got technology moving at this breakneck speed, global economics that are all over the place, and a level of complexity that can feel, well, completely overwhelming. This is not your typical business as usual. We're talking about a whole new brand of chaos, and it's demanding a totally different way of thinking from all of us.
So here's the absolute heart of the problem. Those traditional leadership playbooks, the maps we've all been using for decades, they're useless now. Totally useless. Trying to lead with one of those today is like trying to navigate a real-life hurricane with a map your kid drew in crayon. It's just not going to work. And this is the fundamental issue we need to tackle. But here's the good news. Even in a storm this big, there's a lighthouse. And our guide, our lighthouse keeper, if you will, is Dr. San Dong-Wan. He's a renowned futurist, and he has spent his entire life focused on one single question. How do we actually lead in this new world? And what he's come up with is something he calls the 5 dogmas, a brand new compass for the future.
Now, to build this compass, Dr. San didn't just stick to one field. I mean, look at this. His approach is what you'd call radically interdisciplinary. He's blending sociology, psychology, business, law, even theology and AI. He's pulling from everything. And that incredible breadth, that's exactly why his ideas carry so much weight. He's not just looking at a piece of the puzzle, he's seeing the whole board.
So after all that incredible research, Dr. San didn't just come up with another map to throw on the pile of useless ones. No way. He forged something much, much more useful for a storm. He created a compass. And think about what a compass does. It doesn't tell you the exact path, but it helps you find your true north, your direction, no matter how much the wind and waves are tossing you around.
And here it is, the leader's compass. These are the 5 dogmas, the 5 key directions on this new tool. We've got empathy, networks, innovation, data, and responsibility. Each one is a core principle, and when you put them all together, you get a complete framework for leading. So let's dive in and break down what each of these really mean.
All right, so let's start at the very core of the compass, the part that anchors everything else. We're talking about leading with humanity. And this brings together the 1st and 5th dogmas.
Okay, dogma number 1 is empathy. And this is a direct shot at that old school way of thinking, where leadership is all about squeezing out maximum efficiency and output. Dr. San says, nope, that's totally short-sighted. He argues that true, lasting success, real performance, it comes from first understanding the people who are actually creating the data and driving the results.
And listen, this isn't some fluffy, feel-good concept. This is a hardcore performance multiplier, and it's backed by a ton of data. The idea is called psychological safety, a term championed by Harvard's Amy Edmondson. It's basically the belief that you can speak up, you can throw out ideas, ask questions, even admit you messed up without getting punished for it. And get this. When Google did its massive Aristotle project to find the secret sauce for its most successful teams, what was the #1 critical factor? You guessed it, psychological safety. And that brings us right back to Dr. San's core argument here. As he puts it, future leadership has to maximize potential through a human-centered approach. This isn't about being soft. It's about being smart. It is literally the key to unlocking all that hidden potential just sitting there in your organization. Now, this human-centered focus doesn't just stop with your internal team. It actually extends outward, which brings us to the 5th dogma, responsibility. You see, the old model was all about one thing, short-term profit. But Dr. San's insight is that in the world we live in now, a company's real value, its lasting value, is measured by its contribution to the sustainable development of society as a whole. It's about creating value for everyone, not just taking it for yourself. Okay, so we've got our foundation built on humanity.
But with that in place, how do you actually win? How do you chart the course? Well, that brings us to our next couple of dogmas, which are all about strategy in this crazy hyper-connected world we're in. Next up is dogma number 2, networks. And this one tackles a massive trap that so many people fall into today. The idea that technology is the solution. It's not. Dr. Son's point is that technology is just a tool. The real magic, the real value, comes from being an architect of connections. It's about using that tech to intelligently link people, data, and resources together in new and powerful ways.
I mean, just look at the biggest players out there. Think about Amazon. They didn't become a titan by just being a better bookstore. No, they won by building a massive ecosystem, opening up their platform to sellers and creating AWS. Same with Apple. They didn't just sell a piece of hardware with the iPhone. They built an entire universe around it with the App Store. They weren't just using tech. They were being network architects, and it created almost unimaginable value.
And of course, building these kinds of game-changing networks, that requires our third dogma, innovation. And we're not just talking about any innovation. We're talking about disruptive innovation, a concept made famous by the legendary Clayton Christensen. This isn't about making your product a little bit better. No, this is about creating something that changes the entire game. Just think about it. Netflix didn't try to be a better Blockbuster. It made Blockbuster completely irrelevant.
And to do that, you need a fundamental shift in your mindset. Dr. Son captures it perfectly here. He says future leaders can't be afraid of change. Instead, they have to learn how to find opportunities inside all of that unpredictable uncertainty. It's not a threat to be managed, it's a landscape of possibility to be explored. You have to learn to love the chaos a little bit.
Right, so we've got our human-centered foundation and we have our strategy. But how do we make the right calls day in and day out? Well, that brings us to the last core skill on the compass, deciding with data. This is dogma number 4.
Look, we all know data is important, right? But the common misconception is that data is just a pile of facts and numbers. Dr. Son warns that this view is not just wrong, it's dangerously shallow. He says the real power isn't in having the data, it's in the ability to interpret it. It's about finding the hidden story, the patterns that nobody else sees, the things that can help you actually predict what's coming next.
I absolutely love this metaphor from Dr. Son. He says the future leader can't just be a data collector, they have to be a data psychologist, someone who can interpret the hidden meaning behind the numbers. It's exactly what Netflix did. They didn't just look at their data and say, oh, people are watching this. They dug deeper to understand why. And that psychological insight is what gave them the confidence to greenlight a huge, risky bet like House of Cards.
Okay, so let's recap. We have our compass. We are anchored in our humanity. We have a strategy for networks and innovation. We know how to be data psychologists. This brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. What's the point? Where are we actually headed? What is the destination? What's our legacy going to be? When you boil it all down, Dr. Son's work points to 3 huge conclusions for every leader. First, you have to foster psychological safety. That's how you build resilience and unlock everyone's potential. Second, you have to embrace that we're all interconnected and see your organization as part of a much larger whole. And third, and this is the big one, you need to shift your aim. Stop focusing only on short-term wins and start thinking about building a sustainable legacy, one that actually solves problems for the next generation. Because at the end of the day, Dr. Son's compass is an incredibly powerful tool, but a tool is just a tool. It's not enough by itself. It brings to mind this amazing quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." And that's the final piece, isn't it? Leadership is never just about technique. It's about vision, your belief in where you're going. That's the fuel for the entire journey.
And so, everything we've talked about really leads to one final personal question. Dr. Son has given us the compass. He's shown us the way to find our true north. The only question left is for you. Now that you have it, what kind of legacy will you choose to build?